Hello everyone and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about how to mass onboard users with Azure AD and self-service password reset. If you've ever done an acquisition, you know the scenario of an onboard. They have all of their users in their domain and you need to have those user accounts in your domain because domain trusts are frowned upon. Generally, we mass create user accounts with random passwords in Azure AD. If you have a hybrid environment like most people these days, you will bulk add them to Active Directory on-prem and sync them up to the cloud. But after that, we have user accounts in the new domain and user accounts in the old domain. And then the next major hurdle is going to be, how do we get them their passwords? There are a lot of different ways to accomplish this, and most of them involve someone other than the user knowing the password to the account for some period of time. I think in 2023 and going forward, one of the best options is to leverage Azure AD self-service password reset and automate the majority of the requirements for the process. We do need some good data to make this possible though. The user list that is provided should have enough information to create an account. After those accounts are synced and in the cloud, we need a valid phone number that can receive text messages for each user as well as an email address that can receive email. The automation you will see later in this video assumes that the data provided is good. An administrator is going to run that automation and populate the user objects in the cloud with that information. After that, the end user will be able to go directly to Azure AD, walk through a few simple steps to set up a new password that is unique to them and unknown to everyone else, and in this way, it makes it a lot easier to do a batch onboarding. Using this method, we have only a few dependencies on the required data and only require access to the old email address for a short period of time. We can then have the user walk through updating their security information during their orientation process on their first day. So that's the basic gist of it. Let's go ahead and switch over to what the programming code looks like. All right, so welcome to our developer environment. This is where I am testing out some of the operations that I'm doing in this process. So this is the bulk user creation script. And I just went through and created 100 test employees. They all added successfully, and we're going to be doing the self-service password reset on them here in a moment. This is published to the GitHub too, so if you want to check it out, if you need to use it, feel free. All right, so shifting over to the self-service password reset script specifically, we have our users created, and we also have a sample file for our import. So let's talk about that. Let's go up here to the top. So we need to have an email address and we need to have a phone explicitly. So generally we're going to provide a CSV, and there's a template one that's provided in the GitHub, and we're going to import that. And then we are going to go through, do some basic operation things. We're going to loop through that list that we give it, and we're going to try and resolve those users against Azure Active Directory. And if they can't be resolved, we're going to process them. But we are generally going to be collecting error facts, some Boolean attributes for the different operations, text string for results, and then we're going to be playing with their attributes here and setting them. So the first thing we're doing is resolving them, and then if there's errors, there's error outputs, and we're writing text along the screen, so it's going to tell you how many users resolved, how many users didn't resolve, and then we're going to go through and try and set their phone attributes, and once again, it's going to loop through, tell you who resolved, who didn't resolve. And then we're going to loop through the email attribute, and similar thing. We've got our error variables up here. We've got our outputs, try catches for the different commands that we're running. We're setting new authentication email method and new phone method for the UPN of the user. And then we're going through and setting the different attributes of the operation to true or false so that we know what happened. Let's scroll down here to the end of it, and we're just going to loop through the entire status. And then we're going to catch our unique failures. We're going to write some output at the end of it. And then we're actually going to create our variables for our file path naming, and then we're going to export the output. So the input file was generated from a list of UPNs in the batch user process. And then we have also appended the old company email address, and then I just have some random phone numbers that I'm doing for this stress test. This stress test is going to include 100 random users. So let's go ahead and run the script, see how it goes. It's taking its sweet time to process, so I'm guessing I'm getting rate limited by the API. There we go. We did not resolve 100 users. All right, something didn't work right. Let's try that again. All right, so it would definitely help if I was actually connected to Microsoft Graph. So let's go ahead and try and run that again. There we go. We resolved 100 users. All right, so we successfully set attributes for 100 users on the phone records. There we go. So we successfully set authentication methods for all 200 users. We did not have any failures for email or phone. We did not have any failures to resolve users to Azure AD. And we didn't have any unique failures, users with failures. The exports are going to be in our temp file. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we see in that file. All right. So as expected, the Azure AD attributes are brand new additions. They don't have any standard phone numbers set yet. But we did set all of these attributes. And my next plan is to create a reprocessing script to take this output and then filter it based off of, what type of failures it had. And then, you can go in here, click data, you can filter this list, and then you can look at the source information and see exactly, what was given. So for instance, if you have users that, if they failed AAD, this UPN attribute is going to be what was provided to you, and it's going to be what needs to be fixed. So you can filter this, go look at your data, correct the UPN value in this input, and then you can, go send that out to Azure AD with the appropriate phone and email authentication, and it'll reprocess it. Likewise, it's going to go through and it's going to check whether email is set to true or false, and it's only going to try and repopulate users that don't have those attributes set already. Now that we have all of these users populated, I've gone ahead and got one of them set to attributes that I can actually use for authentication methods. So the next thing that we're going to do is walk through the user experience. Let's switch over to that. Switching gears and walking through the user process, the first thing that we want to do is navigate to the self-service password reset. It's important to know that I don't know this user's password right now. All right, it says employee 87. Let's get the CAPTCHA in here. All right, so my alternate email address, I'm going to be sent a verification code. I just need to type that in. For security best practices, when you're setting this up, make sure you're setting this up with 2 authentication methods. So your phone number is presented to you and you have to actually type it in. So you have to know it at this point. It doesn't display it for you. And then you get a verification code via text as well. And now I can reset a unique password for myself for day 1 use purposes. So as a new user, one of the first things that I can do is I can go up here and I can go to my account. As administrators, we cannot set anything other than email and phone, but honestly, those are less secure methods of authentication, so we highly recommend that you use the Microsoft Authenticator. Yep, there we go. I'm having to verify my identity again. right. So when you get to the security information page, this is going to be where your registration methods are set. So, if you want to update your phone number, you can click change here. But, in a new user context, we're going to highly recommend that you get your new users to add the Microsoft Authenticator application as an authentication method. Their onboarding instructions should walk them through after they set their account up. Please go ahead and set these things up. Scan the QR code. And this is being done in the Microsoft Authenticator application on my phone. All right, so now they're going to send an approval. Click approve. And you have your Authenticator registered. And this is going to be an ideal scenario. You want this to be your primary method for authentication going forward. This is going to do all of your two-factor. And then, after people get their authenticator set or a various other method, we administratively, we can go through and clean up the email or phone records on the back end, just so that we're limiting it to only secure methods. And that is, the general flow of how you use this batch automation process to make your life a lot easier when you're, onboarding 10,000 users or, 100 users or 500 users. Getting all of that stuff set up and getting unique passwords to that many people is always a challenge. So hopefully this has been beneficial to you and this helps you in your day-to-day life as you go through Azure. And I'll see you on the next video.